Hey, Ben, this is Brianna.
Hey, Brianna, how's it going? What's on your mind?
Pretty good. Um, yeah, it sounds like, I don't know how long, but I want to move on direction. Everyone's predicting that's most likely a scenario that's not going to happen. And, I guess my main question in all this is not having to do with, with Iran, and it's like, how do we get Steve Bannon out of power? Because that, to me, seems like he is the most dangerous guy right now in Washington, D.C., because he seems to have Donald Trump wrapped all over his finger.
Yeah.
And he's also one of the guys that said that he would love to go have a religious war against Islam, Christianity versus Islam and stuff. So how do we get him out of power? Or there's nothing we really can do. And also back to, the whole white supremacists and terrorists and all that. If they want to focus on a Muslim country that's causing majority of the terrorists, why don't they focus on Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, great question.
Because isn't Saudi Arabia producing these terrorist attacks? And aren't they? Because if we go back to 9/11, majority of those people who attacked the Twin Towers were from Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So it was Osama bin Laden.
Yeah. Thanks for the call. Thanks for the question, Brianna. So let's tackle the first question about how do we get rid of Steve Bannon. Well, there's two, a lot of people saying impeach Trump. Again, unless you have a plan to impeach all the above, that's really not going to stop this agenda. But then I like the way you drill down and you say, well, what about Steve Bannon? How do we get it? Because if we get rid of Donald Trump, chances are you get rid of Steve Bannon. But the best scenario would be to keep Donald Trump and get rid of Steve Bannon, because Donald Trump himself could be a buffer to Mike Pence, or at least Donald Trump's children. Right, to the only redeeming value that I have seen from the Trump children spawn is the fact that they are willing to fight for LGBTQ rights. Now that leaves a lot of communities vulnerable to Donald Trump, right? And this is in no way of making them seem like they're noble or they as though we should not protest the hell out of them, right? But that's the only redeeming value that I've seen so far in the entire spawn of Donald Trump. And to that end, I think the best scenario would be to get rid of Steve Bannon and keep Trump in there, because he and his children would be at least at a minimum a buffer against Mike Pence's war on the LGBTQ community, and possibly this is a stretch. I'm stretching here, but possibly a buffer against the war on women. It hasn't panned out to be that yet, right? Everything that they're doing so far is adding up to be an all-out war on women. But I'm wishful thinking that maybe Ivanka would step in on some of the women's rights issues. I could be completely wrong, and the audience could be laughing at me right now. But, I mean, I can wish, right? We can hope. Otherwise, Mike Pence represents a full onslaught across the board on every issue that we fight for. And how do you get rid of Steve Bannon and keep Trump? Is that you let Trump know that the rest of America thinks that Steve Bannon is in charge. Donald Trump's vanity cannot tolerate Steve Bannon being the star of the show. And so if we focus on Steve Bannon and make it to be what it really is, he's the puppet master and Donald Trump is the puppet. Well, Steve Bannon won't last long, because what's more important to Donald Trump than any policy is his ego, and he can't handle his ego being bruised. Now, to answer your second question about Saudi Arabia, I actually I heard one argument that is worth discussing with regard to why perhaps we're not focusing on the nations from which the terrorists of 9/11 actually attacked us. Now, I don't agree with it, but I think it was a fairly decent argument. And this was from, I forgot the guy's name. Anyway, I can't think of his name, but he's a representative for Trump speaking from the White House on CNN today. And he spoke about how the location of terrorism has not been static, or the source of terrorism hasn't been static since 2001. And this is true, right? ISIS did not start in Saudi Arabia. But again, paying no attention to Saudi Arabia and the other nations that we are allies with, who actually help fund and the terrorists actually came from, is completely erroneous, or completely shows that this is not about rooting out terrorism, but this is about the politicizing terrorism to their own benefit. And this is why they would not focus on Saudi Arabia, because attacking Saudi Arabia, politically speaking, completely undermines the U.S. foreign policy, current foreign policy in the region. Not to suggest that it is a foreign policy that we should continue, right? We really should reconsider who we have as an ally in the region. But in terms of current politics, we would not dare put Saudi Arabia on a list of state sponsors of terrorism, even though they deserve to be on that list more so than probably any other nation. We wouldn't dare do that because it undermines our current foreign policy.